Good morning, everyone. I am delighted to be able to be with you this morning. I want to thank our team. Jackie and I had immediate congruence in the music that we chose, and Mark's words were really wonderful. The reading that he chose is so perfect. I'm going to add something which I found in a little booklet that I have. Henry David Thoreau, the poet, wrote, "Friends, they cherish one another's hopes. They are kind to one another's dreams." I think that is very representative of our unity of spirit at Unity Church of Rochester this morning. You may be wondering about the choice of my title. Well, Reverend Roz always speaks of she's practicing telling her jokes, and I'm practicing creating my acronyms. And I looked at sorts, the word sorts, because it was like one morning I was talking to somebody and I said, I don't know, I'm a little out of sorts this morning. I don't know what's going on. And then I thought, sorts, what does that really stand for? And then I looked at it and I thought, seeking outside of real truth, silly. It reminded me of that old adage, keep it simple, stupid, which I never liked. But seeking outside of real truth, silly, in the sense of, wouldn't we be silly to be looking for something outside of real truth? But first, what I'd like to do is to characterize out of sorts. We use that expression occasionally, or at least some of us do. And what do we really mean by it? We mean, I'm off my game. I'm not right on the mark. I'm not at the best where I could be. Maybe I'm uncertain. Maybe I don't know what I should do. Maybe I don't even know how to think about what I should do. Maybe I'm troubled and feel like I'm lost and wandering. And at that point, we start looking for answers. Well, there is one place to which we should go, but we often look outside of those places. We often look, today's age, we look at this little contraption, or we look at the bigger one that I've got in front of me. And it's very interesting, friends, because our good neighbors to the north had a very serious challenge with seeking outside of real truth yesterday. The Rogers Company, which is a major provider of communication facilities in Canada, had some kind of breakdown. And people couldn't use their phones. They couldn't get into their bank accounts. They couldn't use their debit cards. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what would we do? Where do we look? And I thought it's really time for us to become aware that there is only one source where we could look, where in fact we should look. I don't use the word should very often because we don't like to should on ourselves. But in this particular case, it's really important that we remember that there is only one power, one presence in the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. I'd like to read something to you from a book by Raymond Charles Barker, who has passed on into the next mention. He was a Science of Mind minister. He was also a friend and acquaintance of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Mary Baker Eddy, Emma Curtis Hopkins, etc. He wrote this: there is one cause, one mind, one source. I am, because this cause created me out of itself in order to express itself as me. I was struck profoundly by that phrase. I'm going to read it again. I am. Why am I am? Because this cause created me out of itself in order to express itself as me. This cause, pure being pure mind, created me as a pure mind in action. God knows me as an intelligent vehicle of its own great ideas. Therefore, I now know myself as the mind of God in expression. I am an alert individualization of the infinite mind. I am intelligence, wisdom, and knowledge. Every idea I need is already within my consciousness. These ideas are now activated in my thought, and I am fully aware of them. Henceforth and forevermore, I shall make right decisions. Which is why I came up with that acronym, Seeking Outside of Real Truth, silly. Because we're not going to shit on ourselves. We're not going to beat ourselves up because we looked in erroneous places for an answer to a question. It was in our silliness. It's what I like to call my twerp personality. You know, that's better than calling somebody a jerk or an idiot. Just behaving like a twerp. Just being silly and not knowing where to look. Looking elsewhere, outside of the matrix of God in which we live and move have our being, friends, is a lost cause. It's an exercise in futility. This definition of who we are, and I feel it is so profound that I wish to quote that one statement again, two actually. There is one cause, one mind, one source. Are we in agreement on that? I certainly hope so. At least I think our listeners and our viewers are this morning. And then this powerful statement, this definition of who we are. I am, which is to say, I exist and have agency as a spiritual being having a human experience, because this cause, God, created me out of itself in order to express itself as me. I think we all know that God created the universe so that it could see itself in action and love itself. There's another acronym that someone else used that I found in a Science of Mind magazine, but is very congruent, of course, with unity thinking. It's the word tool. Tool. You know, we think of a tool like, you know, a paring knife or a pair of scissors or something. But this tool is a profound spiritual idea. It stands for there is only one life. There is only one life. Friends, there is the life of God in expression, which is who I am. It is Jesus who taught us this principle, and he taught it eons ago, because in the human consciousness, it has always been present. It was the task of Jesus in his ministry and his teaching to articulate this. There is only one life. So if we're a little out of sorts, what are we out of? By mistaken identity, we think we're outside of God's life, and we can't be. Friends, the only way we can really be outside of God's life is when we cease to exist. When our heart stops beating, when we stop breathing, and we have transitioned to a different level of experience in the world. This tool, there is only one life, is the most powerful thing that we can use. It's why unity teaches the power of meditation. The power of meditation. When we deliberately and specifically set aside a period of time to sit in the silence. We may think we're sitting in emptiness. We're not. We're sitting in the fullness of manifest creation, guided by the one mind. But I looked at this and I thought, okay, here's a task. What do we need What do we need to successfully use this tool? Remember, any tool that we have doesn't serve us well unless we use it correctly. So I thought, what about the 12 powers? Which of them seemed to me to be rather specific in this occasion? All of them, of course, are tools, but the three that came to my mind, first was faith, second was imagination, the third was will. So I looked at them and I thought, faith. Yes, the classic definition of faith is the vision of things hoped for. So there I am, out of sorts, seeking outside of real truth. Aren't I being silly? When what I need to be doing, I desire to be doing, is seeking the vision of things hoped for. What is it that I want to see manifest in the world? And so very often when we are directed to close our eyes in meditation, that's precisely what we're asking ourselves to do, to close my eyes to see beyond what appears to be visible to me and to await the revelation of what can be, what could be. And I thought, this pairs beautifully with imagination. I remember many, many, many years ago, one of our Sunday school teachers describing imagination as the scissors of the mind. And I always thought, yes, if I had to use scissors of the mind, I'd want them to be pinking shears so that I had pretty edges around whatever I was cutting out. So I think of this imagination as the pinking shears. And so I'm taking them and I am cutting out the picture, the vision of what I desire to see. What could it be? Would it be health? We have been on our Zoom class on Wednesdays recently, we have been talking about healing. And we have come up with many different definitions of healing, very many different expressions of healing. But the one that is the most profound that we have found is restoring something to wholeness. That intrinsic wholeness in which we were created at the moment of our coming into this manifest world. We see ourselves as God sees us in that moment. And the idea, I have another example, the idea that we can behold is in this following story. Some of you who have studied the history of New Thought are acquainted with these names, and so I'll run through them quickly. It says the early teachers, who were the only researchers we had in metaphysical healing, produced astounding healings. Phineas Quimby, Mrs. Mary Baker Eddy, Mrs. Emma Curtis Hopkins, Mr. and Mrs. Charles Fillmore, and Nona Brooks. Those of us who've gone to Unity School know well who Nona Brooks was. She and her sister founded Divine Science College and the Divine Science Church. They were the healing ladies of Denver. One summer, as they were staying in their summer house, a farmer rode over to her house and said, "Miss Brooks, you must come right over to my house. My wife has fallen and broken her leg." She did not hesitate for a moment. I love the next part. She saddled her horse and rode it to the neighbor's farm, where she found the woman in great agony. She sat down at the bedside, closed her eyes, and gave the woman a spiritual mind treatment. Spiritual mind treatment is what science of mind is prayer, as we say in Unity. As she treated, she heard the bones slip back into place. When she finished her treatment, the woman stated she was free of pain. Miss Brooks told the woman to get some rest and that she'd return the next day. And when Nona Brooks came back the next day, the farmer's wife was doing her housework. This is what Miss Brooks said to the author of this book. "I thought nothing of this. It was what I expected." So in that process of faith, we have an expectation of a specific outcome. She had an expectation of healing, and that was what she got. That is part of this tool. The other two powers that I thought of would be useful in this is as I said, imagination. And I love that image of the scissors of the mind. The other one is will. I know we often think of will, and we think of the word willful when we're thinking of a spoiled child or a spoiled adult. I want it what I want, and I want it right now. Or somebody who's throwing a temper tantrum. But will is not that. Will is the willingness to be present to the one power and presence that is the universe, the matrix within which we live. So if we are willing, we are open, receptive, and responsive to God's revelation in our daily life, which is what we do. Our daily life is an expression of God, an absolute expression of God. Friends, this isn't easy. I will definitely acknowledge that it's not easy. So we need to engage ourselves at the level of emotion, at the level of our humanity. And I thought of three things. The first one that was revealed to me was the idea of love. As it said, God so loved the world. It so loved itself that it created the world that it might see itself in us, living as us. And those are the powerful words that Jesus taught us when he said, "He who has seen me has seen the Father." We have seen the source of our power within us to be. So when we choose to live in a world of love, I read something this morning that really touched me. A woman was getting married. She was looking for a wedding dress, and she couldn't find anything in her price range. She had committed to spending $1,000, which I understand from various sources is kind of a cheap wedding dress. What she really found was $3,000 dress. She decided somehow to buy it. She bought it. But then what she decided she would do with it is she would pay it forward. After she got married in the dress, she had it dry cleaned, and she opened up on the internet, and she began to offer the dress. She invited solicitations, requests. They had to tell the story of why they needed to get the dress for free. And people did. She had about 20. To shorten the story, she settled on one. She chose the woman specifically. And it was because the woman needed and had no means to buy a wedding dress. And the woman also said, and after I wear it, I'm going to have it cleaned and I'm going to pay it forward as you have. Friends, the dress is now on its fourth user. You may look at me and say, is that really love? I think it is. I let you make your own judgment about that, but I think it is. We have given a gift of giving. We have been given the gift of giving by the empowerment that we have through God within us. And so this woman gave her wedding dress away, and then so did the next one, and so did the next one, and so did the next one. That is that concept of love. And we know that the foundation of God is love. God is love. We say it all the time. We sing it all the time. It's why we chose the hymn this morning. Open my eyes that I may see. Open my ears that I may hear. The love expressed in the world, the power to express love in the world is available to us if we choose to look at it. If we choose to look at it, friends. I remember many years ago, in the parking lot of Unity School, I was there taking classes prior to being ordained. I was with another classmate. Then we came out into the parking lot, and a fellow and his wife and two little kids discovered that they had a flat tire. Well, the friend that I was with was pretty good at changing a tire. He was a fellow who knew how to do that, and he did it. And when it was all done, the man with the wife and the two kids tried to give him some money. He said, no. He said, you save that. He said, I'm fine. I'm good. Save it and buy the kids ice cream when you get to the next gas station or something. You know, we look at exceedingly wealthy people, and I'm not going to say their names because they're in the news every day, and they give away hundreds of millions. Maybe we don't have hundreds of millions. Well, I don't. Maybe you do. But to move $10 forward, to put something into the cap of a busker on the street, some guy who's playing his guitar, somebody who is standing in a parking lot singing and has a hat on the ground in front of her. We put something in there. These are the simple examples of love, which brings to mind the second facet of life that I think we need to practice in order to experience this ability to seek truth in the real places. It's spontaneity. Spontaneity. I was filling out some paperwork for something the other day, and a person was helping me, and she said, what is the answer to this? And I said, I hemmed and I hawed and I hemmed and I hawed. And she looked at me, she said, you're overthinking this. Do you overthink? Do you overthink? Have you ever stood at the sale counter and found the perfect t-shirt and then agonized whether or not you should spend, okay, this was a few years ago, whether or not you should spend $10 on that t-shirt, which you knew would either give you tremendous pleasure wearing it because of what the logo said on it, or would give tremendous pleasure to the person to whom you were going to give it. And then maybe what did you do? You went, oh, that's silly. I'm not going to do it. And you walked away. I hope after you walked away, you turned around and went back and bought the t-shirt. Spontaneity is not foolishness, friends. It is part of that will, which is willingness to be open, receptive, and responsive when God says, hey, get up, listen. And the still small voice within us speaks to us. Put $2 in there. There's some bum standing. Bum, that's an inappropriate word. There is an angel of God standing at the bottom of the off-ramp saying, any little bit will help. And where do we first go? Well, he could apply to social services. Or, if he'd just get a job. Friends, that's not our judgment to make. That's not our judgment to make. I did the right thing once. I was in the queue, in the line at the bottom of the off-ramp, and I knew I wasn't going to make the next light, and I opened my wallet. Well, I wasn't in a position to give him the $20 bill, but I was in a position to give him the 2 singles that I had, because he was standing there, elderly, with his elderly dog, in a person sweater, a people sweater. You could tell it had been some person's old sweater because that's what it looked like. It wasn't a dog sweater. And I looked at the dog and I looked at him and I said, here's a little something. I'm sorry, it can't be more. And the dog looked at me and he looked at me and I thought, do what you can. Here's the God moment, friends. Angels appear, and you are given this opportunity. So that's what we do. We combine our awareness that we live in a matrix of love, and we are open and receptive to the promptings of spirit, and we are spontaneous in that expression. Well, folks, I have to tell you, the third word that came to me was synthesis. And I really like that one. I'm going to show it to you because you know me and my famous little angel cards. I hope you can see that. It's the angel, and she or he has a rainbow over them. The rainbow, of course, is the symbol of God's presence in our lives. And the promise that we will not but die, and that we will not be destroyed by our own thoughtlessness. I'm not going to say stupidity. I'm just going to say thoughtlessness. That we can do the right thing. Love and spontaneity can become the synthesis in which we understand that there is only one power, one presence in the universe, God, the good omnipotent. That we live and move and have our being in that presence. That we have the tool that we can use because we are intelligent. And as it says, every idea I need is already within my consciousness. These ideas are now activated by my thought. What you think is what you get. And I am fully aware of them. Henceforth and forevermore, I shall make right decisions. We use that tool. There is only one life effectively. I found something in a novel that I am reading. This is a novel written by a woman I've never heard of. It's translated from the French. And before every chapter, there's a sentence or two at the top of the page. This one gave me hope. Because, friends, our lives are full of stress and challenges today. We are still dealing with the effects of a pandemic. We are dealing with the economic effects of the pandemic. Life is uncertain. That's why this sentence moved me so. The darkness has to intensify for the first star to appear. In the middle of the day, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we can look up at the sky, friends, and what do we see? We either see blue sky or we see clouds, but we don't see the stars. We have to wait for the light to begin to disappear and the darkness to come forward so that we can see the brilliance of the stars, that we can find the constellations.